It's great to see lots of faces on the screen. You know, if you're not still in your pajamas, we'd encourage you to turn on your camera. But if you are, that's okay. These guys, we have a little bit of a history in Broadlake with these guys, in the sense that we've look at all those faces. Look at all those. That makes me happy. That makes me happy seeing all those faces. We have a history with the two guys, in the sense that we got to know them probably, Kev, back in 2015. 15, yeah. When we had a Broadlake training event, and we went down to the rowing centre, and we got to meet them, and they're just great guys. And in them we saw, like, I guess we saw something that was world class before they'd even won the Olympic silver medal. And then post that, so we became rowing fans overnight post that. Now Kev has rowed since he could walk, so Kev was always a rowing fan. But post that, then they went on and they won the Olympics and many titles. And then we involved them again in another initiative we had, which is the Entrepreneur Experience down at Cork, where we help entrepreneurs. And they came and they helped us and chatted to us on that. And I was just, at the end of that, I did an interview with them both back in 2018, right? And at the end of that, I wrote an article for the Sunday Business Post, just in terms of some of the insights that we gained from that chat with them. And it was funny, in preparation for today, I dusted down that article and I had a look at it. And it's so funny, because a lot of the points on the article are so relevant today. You know, I felt they were relevant then, but they're so relevant today. And I think what we'll do after this call is we'll share a copy of that article, because it just goes into some of the areas in detail, which is very relevant. And just the headings of that article, if I can find them here on my scribbled notes. There was 8 headings that we covered, right? That we kind of put their success down to. One of them was dream early and dream big. The second one was have the right environment. So to set yourself up with the right environment. Success is built on solid foundations was the third. Work with what you have, right? And that has never been as important as today, right? And even back then, you know, they weren't the guys with the best gym. They didn't have access to all of the money, all of the cash, all the resources, some of the other teams. Simplify complexity, and one of our principles is simplification. See the world to see world class. So these guys were getting out to have a look at the competition. They were traveling a lot to see what everybody else was doing, and they were taking their best ideas and they were bringing them back and putting it into their own game. Ask questions. So they had this kind of insatiable appetite to learn and explore, and they were curious. And then the last one, which is so important today, is embrace change, right? And that's what they didn't fear it. They embraced it and they loved it. They loved trying stuff and the likes. So lots of success there. I think we probably have, I'm looking at a screen of probably 25 people, and there's probably more people. And I'd say the only reason we can't see these lads is now because they have their thing on mute, and we now need them
Paul
to
is
talk.
there.
We now need them to talk, to pop up in the middle there. If they unmute and if they talk, I'm sure we'll see them. I can't see them.
How are you?
No.
It's Jesus. Oh man, we have Jesus on the line. Jesus, not the rowers, and we're getting Jesus.
Yeah, the lockdown's really hitting me bad, you know.
Your hair, I tell you what, we've all done the home haircuts and the likes. Well, I've been dodging it, but the kids have. How long have you been locked up for?
Oh sure. Well, look, the barber died there about a year ago, and I've not found a new one since. So it's been a while.
Right.
But we wait till you see God now in a minute.
Oh, sure, Jesus, we're waiting for God.
Jesus is good.
I wonder, is God going to live up to our expectations of what God looks like?
I don't. He should be signing in there now any minute, I'd say.
Okay.
If he could get out of bed.
Good. Sure, listen, there's always one hard worker in the pair, huh?
Did not me anyway. If he's in bed, he's probably working hard.
Jeez, I tell you, some of his funniness has rubbed off on you, Paul.
I think so. Spending too long together.
Is that what happens when you get locked up together?
Yeah, I think so. Either that or we get fed up with each other. So.
Yeah. And you lads, Kev tells me that you lads were just coming back from a training camp in Spain and ended up yourself in having to quarantine.
Yeah, we were. So we were in Spain since the end of February. And we were back. Just the day we were flying in was the day they recommended that anyone coming back from Spain should kind of self-isolate for 2 weeks. So we went ahead and did that anyway. And then, like, literally as we were kind of waiting out the last hour of our own kind of self-isolation, we were watching the news, and they announced that everyone in the country can't leave home and should self-isolate. So it just went literally straight from one into the other. But we got in an awful panic because we knew that, say, we wouldn't be able to use the rowing club and stuff like that. So it was about 9 or 10 o'clock at night. We were watching the news and we seen this. And so we all just, a couple of us bolted into our cars and went up to the rowing centre and grabbed a load of weights, plates and bars and stuff like that to bring down with us.
I'd say because you skib lads, right, Irish rowing kind of centres around skibbereen. And I think it's the competitiveness amongst you all that drives each other forward, right? And has resulted in so many medals coming out of that club in the last kind of 10, 20 years. But was there any fighting for their favourite pieces of kit? Like, did people get there early and get the one they wanted in the car before you could debate who gets what?
I know it's all good, to be honest, and like, we're pretty fair in that, say, we all kind of view ourselves as being part of the same team. So there's no point in one of us having too much equipment and then someone else not enough and they can't train and bring their best performance to the team, which in the end then could kind of slow myself down or Gary. So we'd be fair and make sure that everyone can do the best then with what we have, like, so we kind of split it up evenly.
Good. Has Gary God arrived yet? He's probably on mute, and that's probably why we can't.
Maybe so.
We can't see him.
No,
Josh! Look at him.
It's a video there. It is.
We've got Jedward. Look at that. I never knew God was a punk. Look at it. Hey, Gary.
How are you?
We're great. And yourself?
I'm good. Thanks for having me on.
Good. Thanks and again, a big thanks for both of you for coming on. I was just before you guys came on, I just gave a little bit of the history in terms of that you've been very good to us in the past in terms of helping us with events and helping us with insights and training days and stuff. And we've gotten a huge amount out of those. So I'm kind of, every time I have the chats with you lads, I learn new stuff. So I'm very excited about having you on today. And I'm very excited that we have so many people on this call. So one of the things we might do is, this is one of the initiatives that is part of our MyNow initiative, which is Mind Yourself Now. And we've put a lot of effort into that initiative because it's something, it's very close to our heart in terms of caring for our people now at this difficult time. Mm-hmm. And as part of that MyNow initiative, we've set up this simple system, which is it's spokes of a wheel that provide us with an ability to check in with one another and just use a traffic light system to assess whether we're kind of green, orange, or red. And I did my kind of Friday check-in here before the call, and I've got 4 greens and 2 oranges. And that's okay. And it's important for me to realize which boxes or which spokes are orange so I can go and make some tweaks and do something with them. But I thought it'd just be an interesting exercise to start off with yourselves, right? And to go around the wheel and use the wheel as a way of just checking in with you guys, because, you know, we as Irish people or English people or whatever, what we tend to do is we tend to have the answer of it's grand. So when someone says, how are you doing? We have this assumption that they're just doing it to be polite, because it's the polite thing to do is to ask you how you're doing. And the polite response to that is not waste a whole lot of their time and tell them that you're grand. And then they've done their job, we've done our job, and everybody's grand. but nobody effectively knows how the person is doing at all, right? So we designed this as just a simple way of checking in with a little bit more detail. So you can't answer the whole wheel with $1,000. So we'll trial this on you guys. So physical, how are you guys feeling? Athletes, world champions and Olympic silver medalists. How are you feeling on the physical side of things at the moment?
Good. Yeah, very good.
So you've got you got the kit, you brought it home into your house, but you didn't bring it into your house. What did you set up now from a physical side of things? And this is one of the things that I love about you guys, is that you improvise. So where is your gym now?
So it's behind Paul there. If you look at the back of his screen, there's rowing machines.
Yeah.
Standing upright.
Over there. There's a bike there too.
Bike. So yeah.
Whatever. Rowing machines. Loads of them.
And what else? You've used your garden.
Mine is outside with the dogs normally.
Yours is, yeah, we have one outside as well. Hang on a second. Yeah, like we don't have access to the road, obviously, the way things are going.
Look at that Portuguese divil there, not on mute. Well done, Paolo. So look at that. Can everybody see that?
Because we don't have access to the rowing club, we managed to get ourselves a little marquee tent there. We put some weightlifting equipment into that. Some barbells and benches and squat racks and stuff.
Which is great. So you can still do all the same physical training that you had done before. The only problem is you're off the water.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, but we're trying to come up with other solutions as well. Like, it can be quite boring to sit on the rowing machine there all day, every day. Well, we'd never be on it all day, every day. But like to go on the rowing machine for 2 hours in the evening, every evening is quite monotonous, and it can be tough, especially when you're looking out at the fine weather. So, I went online there and bought some running shoes and started doing a little bit of running, and bought a wetsuit online because we're very close to the roaring water bay here. It's only about 200 meters of a walk down the road. So I got a swimsuit and goggles and a bit of a kind of a thermal hat. So go do some swimming there during the week, and it just helps break up the training a bit and keep the outdoorsy side of it, because we're used to being outdoors on the river, at least once a week. Even in the worst of cases in the winter time, we generally get on the water at some stage during the week. So to get outside is really nice, and we're trying to be innovative now that we can't go on the river with the rowing boats. And what other kind of training tools can we use to get outdoors?
Yeah, and it's one that I think actually it's kind of saved me in this period, is actually getting out, in terms of I get up early and get out at about 6:30 in the morning for an hour's walk with the dog, and every other morning I'll bring the kids with me. And to be honest, if I didn't have that and the few weights I have at home to do a bit of training at home, if I didn't have that, I'd be stir crazy. So I think I do notice when I get out, it's the fresh air, I can now hear birds that I never heard before, I can smell things. So it's kind of combining the physical with a little bit of the headspace and actually being able to get outdoors.
That's it. And I guess, especially like people are stuck in their houses, and usually, you might be indoors all day long, but you're going from one indoor environment to another. If you're going from home to work or home to a coffee shop or a restaurant or wherever, you're kind of missing the leaving the house part is a big thing. I think even just getting outside the door in any capacity is better than being inside all day, every day.
Yeah, no, I'd agree. And the other thing is, in putting together this wheel and all the different aspects, I figured out that actually, if one spoke is kind of fully broken, then actually the wheel don't kind of work. So it's about trying to keep everything in balance, because if I wasn't getting my bit of physical, you could forget about the rest. The rest of them would go to pot, because I wouldn't be kept sane. So certainly, I hope people on the line, on the call, are getting out for those little bits of exercise in terms of fresh air. And it can be a walk, it can be a cycle, it can be whatever. But I think it's really, really important. Then in terms of staying mentally sane, so the second spoke on our wheel is mental. Paul, how are you finding that?
I think it's all right, to be honest. And so, well, I had been in college up until Christmas, and then I was taking time out to go training full time. But since they cancelled the Olympics, then I got back onto them in school, and they've allowed me to do some online learning materials now, and I'll sit some exams in August then at the end of the summer. So I think it's good that I kind of I can do that during the day, so I'm not just kind of sitting around bored and watching Netflix and that, and then I won't kind of fall behind then with college work, because I'll have to take some time out next year now for the rowing thing. So I think it just kind of it happened to work out quite well. So I've
So
got that to keep me
you're
stimulated.
getting some good productive use of the time in terms of looking at things differently, which is great. And how about yourself, Gary?
Yeah, I think it's probably, a bit more challenging for me. I mean, Paul's just sitting down there studying his notes all day. Whereas, my day revolved, when I wasn't rowing, my day used to be revolved around where could I spend time, like, who could I go and visit, or where could I drive to or something. So, I've had to change that quite a bit, being stuck at home. Yeah, I'm just trying to, like, occupy the day there, watch a bit of Netflix. I finished off the Tiger Kings this morning, which was interesting. I got a bit of inspiration from that there, and how the world should be run, I think. And then, yeah, just doing a bit of reading. I think, I've taken up a lot of reading. I haven't done a huge amount of it in the past, but trying to get into a habit of doing that. And then Skyping friends and ringing friends and keeping in contact with people who I probably, I've been neglecting the last while because of the training. The training now can be demanding there sometimes. And instead of ringing someone, you're just being trying to go home to bed and rest.
Yeah.
In between training, I have a bit more time and a bit more energy now to spend kind of keeping in contact with people, because I enjoy doing that.
Good. It's amazing in terms of, the little bits of filling time with things. I find actually one of the things I've started doing is I'm a slow reader. I kind of like reading, but I'm a slow reader, so I kind of get frustrated. But Audible has been a great invention for me in terms of it enables me to kind of, and I think I consume stuff better audio to listening than to actually reading. So that's one of the things that I've kind of dived into, and I'm exploring all sorts of books that I haven't explored before, which is really, really interesting. I think for me, one of the things from the people that we're talking to across the businesses on this particular one, the thing is to often focus on, sometimes at times like this, you can focus on what's not going well, right? Yeah. And I think the thing that we're finding works is to lean into what's going well, because there's so much going well across all the businesses. And sometimes instead of focusing on what we're not getting done or getting to focus on all of the stuff we are doing and how good a job we are doing, and to not get stressed out by the little things, because it can be difficult in terms of, some people are living in confined spaces with families and this, that, and the other. So I think it's tricky time. You talked about linking in with friends, and maybe friends that you didn't get the time to link in with when you're kind of fully campaigning in terms of training, and in terms of how have you've done that phone, or have you done it through Zoom, or how are you finding that? How are you feeling about that?
Any which way at all, like whatever's convenient, WhatsApp, Instagram, Skype, Zoom, whatever, FaceTime. People are pretty accessible on everything these days. So, whatever people are easy enough to use, maybe Tinder or one of those things. There's all kinds of apps for staying in contact with people.
Yeah, how are you finding Tinder these days, Gary?
Sure, there's much going on, like, know yourself, trying to set the radius to 2 kilometers, and there's much happening down the countryside within the 2 kilometers.
You poor fella. How about you, Paul, on the emotional and social side of things? How are you finding it?
Yeah, I don't like talking to people anyway, in general. So I like, the lockdown is kind of my dream, really. And then people can't be kind of coming around annoying me either, making me talk and stuff. So
he only has me to deal with around the house.
It's so funny that for two brothers that have raced together for years and years and years, we can have two people that are actually very, very different. And that's what I think is been a huge part of the magic in your partnership in the past, is that you are different, and you've got different interests, you've got different personalities, and you probably find that keeps each other going.
Yeah, in a way, I think, like we haven't lived together now since 2016. After Rio, we stopped living together within about a week of not living together, we realized we'd never again do it, because it wasn't as good as we thought it was. I think once this quarantine started again, we moved into the house together for the first time in 4 years. and we kind of started clashing almost immediately. You know, Paul was getting annoyed with how hard I closed the doors, and I was getting annoyed with how lack of talkative he is in the mornings over a cup of coffee. You know, he'd be happy enough sitting there looking out the window or looking at his phone, and I'd be trying to talk about the weather or something. We were clashing quite a bit, but you know, we've after a couple of weeks of it now, we're kind of learning again how to stay out of each other's hairs.
Yeah, and link it into the next one then in terms of work balance. So your work is your training and your studies, and then to be able to switch off from that at a time where this was supposed to be an Olympic year for you. So you were building up, and now you're sitting in rural Cork, you know, training out of a marquee, not seeing anyone, not competing, not traveling.
Yeah.
How you know, how is that? How is that balance going?
I think, well, initially, like, you just get on with it. It's like, okay, this is what's happening. The Olympics are postponed. So you just get on with it. It's like, what can we do? Get our hands on training equipment, get ourselves away from people, and you know, like, listen to, we're very much so just like putting the priority for us as listening to the HSE and the government and doing what we were told. So it wasn't about, like, we weren't like trying to find loopholes and say, oh, is there a way we can get on the river, or is there this or that? It's like, what's the most important thing to do now? And that's abide by the recommendations. And then if we can do stuff, we'll do that. So we got our rowing machines in the house and so on. And we bought some like other training tools online, which helped. But I think, yeah, we've definitely had to take our foot off the gas when it comes to the training. I mean, it was pretty full on. We were over in Spain there, and we were racking up like 300 kilometers a week, which is that's a random number to most people listening there, but it's quite a bit. It's about 4 hours of rowing a day. Like, that's intense rowing as well, not just warming up and cooling down. You're doing 4 hours of hard effort, and that's really hard to sustain. And when you're looking at it and you're trying to ramp it all up and up and up until the end of July when the Olympics start, and then all of a sudden that's gone. So you're like, okay, we can't sustain this upward trajectory of hard, intense mileage for another 16 months, or more, whatever it is, from now until the Olympics in 2021. So it's like, take your foot off the gas and try and find ways of maintaining the training, maintaining the fitness, not losing the fitness, because, you know, we're very fit, and like I said, a personal best there just before the lockdown came in, so that was a good sign. And it's like, if I stopped training completely and taking my foot off the gas altogether, then I'd lose all that hard effort I've put in since last summer would just be gone to waste, because you'd have to start again, you know, next year before the games. So it's like, the motivation becomes to try and maintain the fitness and keep doing something, because it's hard, you know. The goal has been pushed away out, and it's like, you could be sitting on the rowing machine thinking to yourself, God almighty, it's so far away, what's the point in even bothering today, like, when I can do it in a few months' time. But
and how do you do that? How do you do that? Because I can only imagine, you know, you're not, like, I don't know when you plan to get back in the water, or when we plan the world to go back to normal, but I think all of us now realize that this is going to take some time, and even when we get back, the world is not going to be fully kind of normal per se in the way that we expected it to be normal in the past. So it might be, you know, yours is an international sport, you know, most of your competing is internationally. Like, how do you actually cope with that? Like, what's the...
Well, I guess a lot of the motivation is coming from what we have done in the past. So it's like, we've put in huge amounts of effort and energy, and it would be a shame to let that go to waste, you know. Like, that would just disappear if we took 3 weeks off training. All of that training and effort that we've done for the last 9-10 months or longer would just be completely gone to waste. So you're like, you kind of want to maintain the fitness and keep the levels high. You know, it's like an escalation of commitment. You've invested so much in it now. Like, if you bail on it, you'll just have to go back through all that effort again and again. So a little bit now saves a lot of effort later, I think.
It's kind of, there's almost, you sound a little bit like the government in terms of when they're telling us to stay in. We just need to do this, and this is going to make sense for all of us. But that's interesting. Paul, how about you in terms of Paul, how about you in terms of just that kind of balance and coping with it? How you've obviously distracted yourself with some extra studies, but mentally you were preparing for games.
Yeah, I suppose. Well, that's the thing. Well, we're kind of preparing for rowing all the time, like. And now people are saying, "Oh, what are you doing now that the target's gone?" But I mean, the target is still there because they announced that the Olympics are on in July next year, and so it's actually really quite close. Like it's only a little over a year away. And like when we were 10 and 12 years old and 18 and even up to 4 years ago, like we were mad about training for the 2016 Olympics or the 2020 Olympics, and they're miles away by that stage. And so now it's only a year away. It's really close, like. And so I like there's plenty of motivation there to keep fit and keep up the training. Like, I think we enjoy training as well. Like it's rowing is something that we enjoy doing, even on a day-to-day basis generally. So it's not that hard really to refocus when something is not too far away and you enjoy the day-to-day process of it anyway.
Gotcha. Financial side of things. When we met first, you guys were living like monks. You were living in your nan's house. You were scraping to get by, and one of the things that took us by surprise was that was what the life of Olympians and potential medal winners look like, and we kind of felt that there'd be more resources out there for you. Is that an area now of struggle with grants and supports and sponsors, or how are you feeling?
I'm still living with the grandmother, to be honest, when I'm not in college. So I was there up until they announced the lockdown, but I said I'd move out then because she's old and has to do the cocooning.
Yeah.
But she's doing all right. But
and how is she?
She's good. Yeah, she's in good form, in fairness. But I suppose then, in terms of the financial side of things, say, we're just Rowing Ireland, the governing body. Certainly the past number of years, they've got an increase in their budget. But what's after happening is the team is after growing much larger than that. So what budget they have is kind of split over more athletes now. So there's nearly kind of less to go around. But we're still making do on that front. And then myself and Gary then have been able to raise some of our own sponsorship.
I think where we've been lucky as well, like through myself and Paul's success, is that we've had a lot more access to like rowing resources around the world. Like the international, like the boat manufacturers internationally they've been looking for us to use their equipment and their boats. So instead of rowing, like we generally need 2 of every boat that we have. So if we're racing in the double, we need a second one for traveling around the continent when we're racing, and one to have at home when we're training, especially in the summertime. And say when we go to the games, like when we went to Rio, we had to send a boat away 3 months in advance of the race, so we had to have a replica boat at home, and Rowing Ireland needed to get us 2 boats. But now we're lucky that the international crowds they're willing to give us boats and let us use them. So Rowing Ireland own one of our boats and we own the other one. But, so I think in instances like that, when the Irish athletes are getting more successful, then more there's more companies are more willing to give, and it frees up resources then for the developing athletes. So Rowing Ireland then instead of having to buy us 2 boats, they can buy a boat for one of the developing crews and so on, and it makes life a little bit easier. So with success comes little bits of help like that, which makes a big difference to the overall team.
Gotcha, which is great. So it sounds like it's slightly better than the time that the Broadlake crew went down to the rowing centre back in 2015. It's you've moved on a bit since then, which is great. And one of the things we're finding is financial. It's funny, like we're finding people have financial concerns, because people close to them might have lost jobs or have concerns, and it's just that fear that sometimes your own circumstances haven't changed hugely, but there's just that fear out there, and it's good.
Sorry, Pete. Like when it comes to rowing as well, like because because before Rio, there wasn't huge success in Irish rowing. You know, we've had the odd few World Championship medals, but there was nothing that major. I think, like when we were trying to attract young people, and even for ourselves, it didn't seem like an attractive thing to go out and put all your life into rowing when you're young. And you'd have people saying, "Oh, you should go off studying, or you should put rowing to the side because that'll never bring you anywhere." And then therefore, I think it was hard for athletes to really commit to it. But now, you know, you see the Irish rowing team, we picked up four medals at the last World Championships, and we had 4 boats qualify for the Olympics. And all that came from in 2015 when we had just had 2 boats in the B final that qualified for the Olympics. And I think, you know, once there's success there, people can see it and they can say, all right, yeah, it is a bit of a long shot, but there's I don't know how am I trying to put this. It's like, you know, it was not an attractive thing to throw your whole life at something that was uncertain. And now I think there's a bit more certainty there that, okay, if you can make your way up the stepping stone, there's different levels, and eventually you'll get to a medal, and eventually you'll see success, and then you can start getting a bit more security through that. Whereas, you know, 10 years ago, if a young fella said, "Oh, I want to try and go and win a World Championship medal," it's like, "Oh, well, you can't do that. There's no money." But now we've shown like you can get so far without money and with limited resources. I mean, we still don't have the resources of some of the biggest nations in the world, but on the medals tables come the World Championships, we're punching well above our weight there, you know.
Yeah,
so I think we don't have the resources. You just gotta, like, if you're determined enough to do something, you just figure out a way to do it.
Yeah, it's and that was something that struck me about you lads from the first time I met you, is in terms of you work with what you have, and if the circumstances change or if the environments change, it's nobody's fault. All you look to do is try and adapt fairly quickly to make the best out of what you have. I remember the pictures of the gym that you had in Skib, and you know, very, very basic in terms of kit or equipment, and yet you guys were competing at, you know, in world championships and winning medals. So it was it's phenomenal. Sometimes people think, particularly at times like this, they think about everything that they don't have, right? So in terms of, you know, like and I think we've all proved that. We've seen it now with everybody that's on the screen and everybody across the companies, the phenomenal job that people have actually done when they've been forced to work from home, or some of them have been forced to actually go on furlough or this, that, and the other. It's amazing how, you know, I guess things like resilience, you know, I see it in my mum, and maybe it's having raised 5 lads, but my dad passed away about 4 years ago, and I just see now, I see a real resilience in her that actually sometimes you don't see it come out until times like this, and she's cocooning on her own like your nan, and I think that's probably, there's probably a lot more resilience in us than sometimes we give ourselves credit for.
I think sometimes as well, you know, you can just like strip down the bells and whistles and say, what do I actually need? What are the fundamentals here, and what's actually really important to get a job done, or to do whatever you need to do. And like, more often than not, I think people they overthink things, and they make too much of it, and it's like, oh, I don't have this, I don't have that, but really what do you really need? And I mean, for just this one meeting, all you need is internet and a computer, and you can do an awful lot of things with that.
Yeah, no, it's amazing. It's amazing. And jumping into the last spoke, are you lads, for the peace of mind, you used to have it on the river? I'm sure that was a great peace of mind in terms of getting out, fresh air. I grew up doing a bit of sailing, and I know that just when you're out in the water, it's just your mind just goes to another place. You don't have that. Any little tricks or techniques you're using to kind of keep the headspace, or is it just at the moment living together? Is it just keeping your space from each other, and that's giving you a bit of headspace?
I think, yeah, like keeping our distance from each other, and you know, what doesn't work. But I think just what's good as well is just doing something different sometimes, you know. So like, to switch off from college, I do rowing and a bit of training in the evening. And to switch off from that, I do some studying during the day, and like one gives a break from the other, and so you can kind of save time there, instead of, like, if I was just working and not exercising, I'd have to put aside, you know, 30 minutes or an hour anyway, where you just kind of switch off and meditate or one of these type of things. But I kind of do my meditating or whatever while I'm training, so you can get the 2 birds stoned at one stare with that, which is kind of useful. And I think, to get away from each other, like we can go out on the roads and do a bit of running and take in the scenery there, so that we're not just kind of looking at the wall on the rowing machine all the time. And Gary's been doing a bit of swimming as well out in the sea because we're pretty close to that. So I like that. There's ways to do everything, and you just gotta work with the resources you have.
It sounds like a bit of routine and a bit of nature.
Mm.
So tell us, listen, one of the areas that we'd like to also jump into is we have principles, family principles within Broadlake. Kev, I don't know if you have them handy there to pull on the screen, and this is kind of throwing it at you in short notice, but there's one in particular that we'd like to just have a quick chat with you on, right? So we have these 15 principles, and effectively they're the things that we lean into, particularly at times like this, that effectively give us a kind of a commonality in terms of how we approach things and how we think about things and how we work as a team, and the likes. And they vary from everything from clear tracks in terms of clarity of what we're trying to achieve, to trust and respect amongst our team, and openness and honesty. And there they are. Know yourself. We think it's very important. Know each other. We think is very, very important. And you can't really know each other unless you truly know yourselves. Trust and respect. That's really important. Fast evidence-based decision making. So we're looking at things and trying to make decisions quickly with the evidence. Find, recognize, and realize potential. It's close to our heart in terms of always trying to work with our talent and to help them realize their potential. Have fun and celebrate success. When on top of your game, change your game. And then IROR, which is individual radical ownership and responsibility, which is where we as a team focus on playing in our position, and we trust each other to play in that position. Respect for money is an important one for us. And then we want to be different and brave and confident, and it's been very important to lean into that one at this time. Then we want to be entrepreneurial. We're trying to simplify everything. I think it's linking into what you said, Gary, in terms of just peel it all back. What are the main things, and keeping the main things, and then being obsessed with the how, because we kind of feel that what to do is kind of 20% success. You know, it's the how you do it. And, you know, for you guys, the what is we're going to get in a boat together and we're going to row whatever the distance is, right? It's the how that is the success. It's not the what. Would love to chat through all of these with you and get your ideas. But in terms of timing, the one I would want, I'd love to just jump into is this concept of when on top of your game, change your game. So we have great people on this call. We have great businesses. And one of the things that this COVID situation has really emphasized for us, you know, we knew they were great in terms of people, teams, cultures, companies. And the thing that this has proven is that. So we kind of knew it. So it's given us great confidence. And we you know, everybody wants to think this kind of on top of your game, change your game. And what we're having to do as leaders and owners is actually make sure that we're focused on doing that ourselves, to look at things differently. You guys have done that the whole time. You know, that came out in spades from the last interview I did with you guys in 2018. Talk us through some of the big things that you changed when you were doing well, because you knew you wanted to do better. And even when you're winning, you're changing stuff to stay ahead, because that's what we're all being forced to do now, is we're being forced to make changes to pretty much everything in our worlds. And the difficulty is that it's simultaneous. So, like, you know, the house has now become the house. It's become the school. It's become the coffee shop. It's become the gym. It's become everything. And you know, the home might be a one-bedroom apartment, or who knows, right? So we've had to change everything. But talk us through, because I've always been fascinated with your ability to change and your want to change. You don't just, you guys actually get excited about new stuff and trying new stuff. Talk us through some of the areas that you've changed over the last maybe 5 or 10 years, or even since the last Olympics. So what have you changed since the silver medal?
Sorry, just to start, I think, you know, we've been really lucky with our coach Dominic that he's given us an awful lot of autonomy as well. You know, he's always been open to change when we wanted, and you know, we've always asked him what he think could be different or whatever, and he's never been dogmatic with us, and he's always said, you know, he's always been open to our suggestions as we have been to him. So we've been really lucky to get autonomy from the coach to be able to adapt and move around and maneuver our own schedules and our own training programs and our own lives as we see necessary to make ourselves faster in the rowing boat,
And what sort of things? So what sort of things would you? So changing schedule. What sort of things like? What sort of things? Give me some practical examples, just so we kind of get a feel for the type of things you're talking about that they could be. And at your level, the change might be tweaks, but they might have a material impact.
Yeah. I suppose one of the first ones that comes to my head, and I've had this example before about changing things, was in the 2016 season before the Olympics in Rio. I suppose before that, in 2015, Joey come just about 11th place and managed to sneak the last qualifying place. And then the following year, then we were going quite well. But the last 2 or 3 regattas before the Olympics, we come 4th at all of them. And we were kind of heading into our last training block. And we got chatting to a girl who had been to the Olympics a good couple of years in the past. And she was saying, yeah, that's it. You're doing great now, lads. You just got to keep doing what you're doing and you'll do fine. And we kind of stopped and looked at each other afterwards.
We were
like,
standing there scratching our heads like.
I mean, is she delusional? Like, we're after coming 4th here now. Like, this is a complete disaster. Like, if we stay doing what we're doing, things are not going to work out well in our favour. And so we just we went away then on our final training camp and just almost turned to just set up with a boat upside down. And we kind of knew looking at Rio that the weather was going to be quite rough and the water would be choppy, and we changed the setup in favour of those kind of conditions. And we kind of felt then over there that played into our favour and kind of helped us come up a few steps on the ladder. So I think that's a good example. And then after that, then again in 2017 or 18, we changed our boat manufacturer and just started making little tweaks and stuff like that to the training programs that we had been doing over the past couple of years. And then we ended up winning the World Championship then in the double in 2018. And then say last year then, 2019, we were the world champions in the double and won by one of the biggest margins that had been, the event had been won by in the past couple of years. And we went and changed the crew. We threw Gary out the boat and brought in a new guy because he was going a bit better. And so like that, you have to be prepared to change things when things are going reasonably well, or even when you are on top, you still have to kind of change things to stay on top of the game, because once there's people behind you, they'll try absolutely anything they can to get ahead of you. So if you're kind of sitting there being complacent, sooner or later someone is going to find out a better way to do something than you're doing it. So you always have to be.
One of the big ones for me was in 2018. I think like as soon as we started getting a bit more financial resources behind us, we decided that we'd take the winter and go to the Southern Hemisphere. And we were like, we said to Dominic, our coach, and we said to the performance director, look, we want to go to New Zealand for a few months and race, because their summer season is their racing season domestically. So we said we want to go to New Zealand for a few weeks and then on to Sydney for a few weeks and do some races. And like there was no questions. Like Dominic was saying, oh yeah, I think that'd be a really good idea. So we struck on down there and we trained. Like New Zealand and Australia are notorious for being two of the best rowing nations in the world, with some of the biggest rowing systems in place. And we wanted to go down and learn from them. And we had been going well up to then. We had the silver medal. Paul had won the world champs in 2017 in the single, and we had a few more guys from Skibbereen who'd won the world champs as well that year. And we were like, we kind of thought about it, and we were like, we could fuck this up completely. We could make an absolute bags of it. We mightn't have good equipment. We mightn't have good training. Our training mightn't be as good down there because we're away from our home environment. But we're like, heck, we'll go down anyway, and we'll see what it's all about, and see what the Australians do, and see what the Kiwis do. And they were all very generous and open, and they gave us boats and they gave us places to live, and they were always accommodating. And we came back then like with a completely new perspective on training. And that year, like all our lives we pretty much trained 7 days a week and took a day off maybe once every 2 weeks or once every 3 weeks. And after coming back from there, we saw that every single week without fail the Australians and the Kiwis takes Saturday evening and Sundays off training. and we started doing it down there with them because, you know, we were kind of on a bit of a holiday as well. So we'd go train early Saturday morning and we'd go off with some of our friends down there and do some activities or so, or go on the piss or something on the Saturday night, and we'd have Sunday off, and that was lovely. Like, so we came back from there then, and we kind of just decided that was it. We were going taking Sundays off from now on, and we did it for the rest of the year. And I think it was like it was just a new way, a new approach for us. Whereas I think before we'd have gone down there, we probably would have been afraid to take a Sunday off because we'd have been calculating, okay, over the space of a year, we'll lose 50 weeks of training or 50 days of training, and we didn't want to be doing that. But then we went down and we said, okay, this is what they're doing. We tried it. We realized there was a big benefit because for the other 6 days that you are training, you're getting in better quality and better intensity and so on. And you're getting more of a mental break. And we came home then, and every Sunday we'd try and do something new around the country. We'd do some sightseeing or go exploring Ireland a bit because we had never really done that. And we were saying, you know, we were down in Sydney and New Zealand, and we were seeing all the parts of the world there and meeting all the new people and stuff we'd never done in Ireland. We said, geez, we should be doing this. And away home we came and started exploring more of Ireland on our days off. And I think that was just a kind of a refreshing option. And I think we were lucky as well that Dominic was open to the idea of changing the program as well, that we thought it might be a more suitable lifestyle for us.
It's amazing when you say a refreshing option. And I think there's people on this call that have been working very, very hard in the last 6 or 7 weeks, right? And the thing is, what we're trying to do is we're trying to promote that too, right? And it's areas where I have struggled myself in terms of switching off and stepping away from it and the likes. But a guy said something to me last year, which kind of made it click for me, right? Which was, he said, it's not just rest you need rest to repair, right? And the thing is, and I think with the work that we do, whether you're doing it physically or whether you're doing it mentally, everything needs time to repair, right? And when he said it, rest and repair, I kind of got it, because then I said, oh, Jesus, yeah, because you actually need to repair. And that might be you need to give your brain a rest, or you need to give your body a rest or whatever, but it's that repair, because if you don't repair, then you will get injured. And that's how I kind of framed and understood it. So I think that's a great insight in terms of
Sorry, Pete, as well. I think like we've been given examples there where like changes have worked out in our favor, but there's plenty as well where we've made an absolute bags of things and got trainings wrong and got periods of time have been kind of wasted. But I think it's important that you try these things as well and be aware if you're trying something new, just be aware, is it working or is it not? And sometimes it doesn't, and then there's no harm in doing that and taking a learning from that as well and saying, right, I have an idea, maybe it'll work, maybe it won't, let's try it. And if it doesn't work, you can always return.
Yeah, I think, there's a lot that high performance sport, a lot of business, and we can learn from high performance sport. And I think Greg Feek, I think you met before possibly with us, but Greg was the scrum coach for Ireland, and now he's the scrum coach for the All Blacks. And he's a friend of ours, and he used to say that in Irish rugby camp, they used to take in lots of ideas and try lots of things. And if it didn't work for them, they just let it go. I think we're trying to do that a bit more in business now. There's always the fear that if you try it, you have to make it work, or if it doesn't work, then you've made a mistake in trying something. And I think what we're trying to do is to promote that kind of agility of giving it a go. If it doesn't work, let it go, and no harm, because you need to go through a process like that, I think, to find the things that work for you. And I think that's really, really important. One of the things I said before you guys came on, I listed the 8 headings that around that article I wrote post our last interview in 2018. And one of them was, when on top of your game, change your game, right? No, sorry, it was what was it? If you want to be world class, you got to see the world to see world class, right? That was it, right? And you guys have given a great example there. And what we're trying to do as businesses is look outside a whole lot more, right? So to try and look at what's going on in other companies and other countries, because one of the things I say is the easiest way to win is to beat the other person, right? So if you know what the other person's doing, then you just have to beat them. If you're trying to win against yourself and you don't really know what you're trying to beat, then that makes it harder, right? do you have an idea? So you're sitting there, you're doing your training, Olympics pushed out, etc., etc. On the international circuit, you got a good opportunity to stay in touch with what competitors are doing, right? Do you have any sense what the competition is doing in response to this? Are they doing anything different to you? Are they doing same as you? You know, for instance, if, you know, I don't know, if you live within 2 kilometers of your boat, can you technically row on the river? I don't know.
Yep. Yeah, that's happening. Like even that's happening in the rowing club in town. There's like some of the athletes in the rowing club in Skibbereen, their houses are literally on the river, so they've taken their boats home and they launch from the bank of the river at the bottom of their gardens, you know. So they're able to do 2 kilometer loops around their house, or 2 kilometers one way and 2 kilometers another. They get a 4K loop in. Around the world, I think, yeah, you can see an awful lot of what's happening around the world through Instagram and stuff, because everyone's updating with their new training regimes and new training facilities, and often what's happening with the big countries, say Britain and New Zealand, Australia, Germany, they're often when they're training within their national teams, they're not allowed to report what they're doing online. So you can't ever see what training they're doing unless you actually go and ring them up and ask them or something. But now they're out of their training environments from their national teams, and they've been given the freedom to post what they're doing. And a lot of them are just putting rowing machines, like a lot of them would live in apartments in cities. I think the Dutch especially, like they just got rowing machines kind of sprawled across their living rooms, and they have to move the couch out of the way and move the TV around a bit. I think that's the case for an awful lot of them. Some of them then in like New Zealand, they're spending a lot of time on road bikes because they've got a bit more scope for moving around there on the roads. But I think we're in more of a lucky position out here where we are, because we've got the countryside, we've got water close to us. We're hopeful that, you know, soon that if they lift the restrictions a little bit, that we might be able to get access to the river in some capacity, so we could take our boats and maybe put them on the roof of the car and launch from somewhere else. But yeah, I think everyone's kind of everyone has a rowing machine basically. They're a really easy tool to bring around. They're quite robust and they're very functional for rowing training. So that's pretty much what most of them are doing. But I don't think a lot of them have the same kind of amenities around them that we have out in the countryside in West Cork. So we're kind of looking at the internet there most days and counting ourselves very lucky to have the facilities we have around us.
Great. I could stay and chat with you lads all day, because there's every time I talk to you, I get different insights. But I think we have taken a big chunk of your Friday afternoon. So on behalf of us at Broadlake, I'd like to say that was hugely insightful. That there's so many takeaways, but the one thing that I take away is that you guys are still so positive, right? In terms of looking at this is just being pushed out, this hasn't gone away, and that you're adapting to the new environment to actually make it work for you. And I think that's the takeaways that I'm taking, is keep your positivity up and keep adapting. And that's just and if you do that, that's a really good start. And focus on what matters, you know. And I think that's what you're doing. So listen, it's tough for you. I would like to wish you success in lockdown, right? And we'll be tuning in once you guys get back on the water. And I hope you have a great weekend. And again, thanks for your time.
Thanks very much.
Cheers, guys. Thank you. Thanks a lot. Bye now. Everyone have a good weekend.
Thanks, guys. Cheers, Pete.